I have a thing about ties, though.
Go on.
I'd kill someone with a tie on, for sure.
You can kill someone with a tie.
100%. If I get a hold of that tie, you're dead.
Joe, this conversation needs to go on for longer than it's going to go on.
That's the thing about ties. You're wearing a rope around your neck. If someone just gets a deep grab,
Joe, what are you thinking about?
Twist.
I'm not going to have a fight with anyone whilst I'm wearing a tie.
I'm sure you're not, but it's. I mean, you would have to, in a deep disagreement, you'd have to wrestle that sucker loose and take it off to be safe.
I'm not going to indulge this.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. It's my own personal problem. I just feel like someone with a tie on, all you have to do is grab that thing, and that's a wrap. Like if you went into a jiu-jitsu match and you had a rope around your neck, you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, right?
I am, yeah.
So I'm sure you've been collar choked then.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been fighting for 20 years, Joe.
Yeah,
more than 20 years.
This thing around your neck, like.
Really? By the way, my game is I'm all about the gi. I mean, I played a lot of no gi, but I've come back to the gi, and the reason I've come back to the gi is I'm quite tasty with the gi. So
quite tasty.
Quite tasty with the gi. There's a couple of moves that I'd like to show. It's a bit tricky on your with your t-shirt, but I'm all about strangling a man with his gi, which somehow elegantly segues from the tie. I mean, I'm all about creating what I call the hangman's rope out of the bottom of your gi. And turning that into a thing.
So you're one of those guys that pulls the bottom of the gi and wraps up.
I'm that guy. I'm out there, and I played this game for a long time, which is the wrapping around the wrist, or the fold. So you get that little dinosaur flippy thing there, so your arm's out of action. But then I discovered something, Joe. If you slip that gi in through there.
So what he's doing for people just listening, he's tucking it like towards his.
On the inside.
The inside cruck of his elbow.
And once it comes in on the inside, you can't get that hand out again. That's it. Basically, the fight's over from there.
The fight's over?
From there. Because from then on, you own that arm. It's interesting. We should have a little roll around at the end of this, Joe.
How long have you been training now? 20 years? What belt do you?
20 years. Black belt. From Henzo.
Oh, that's legit, man. That's seriously legit. Do you think most people know that? You've managed to keep that on the DL a little bit.
Not so much.
Not so much? No? Well, I think if you ask the average person in the street, is Guy Ritchie a black belt in jiu-jitsu? They go, no, is he?
But does the average man in the street know what a black belt in jiu-jitsu is anyway?
I think they do now more than ever.
Well, it's probably more now.
Well, that's why when I see a guy as experienced as you wearing a tie, I go, maybe you're just super confident about no one being able to get to that tie.
But Joe, I'm not. What's going on?
Well, I'm a ridiculous person. That's what's going on. I mean, you have your own ridiculous ideas about owning suits. I have my ideas about getting choked to death wearing a tie.
Like I said, I'm not going to indulge it. You're fishing.
I'm not fishing. I'm honestly, I really do have an issue with ties.
Okay.
But it looks wonderful on you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, for real, it's a very elegant appearance. The whole thing from the top to the bottom. When did you start training? Under who? Where were you?
First of all, I did karate for 15 years. I did Shotokan karate, which I was obsessed with. Got a second dan in that. And then ACL went twice on the right leg. And I watched Choke. Can you remember Choke?
Sure.
And I watched Choke, and it was a revelation because old man... What was his name? Elio. Old man Elio was on the mat at 84 in that video. And I thought, well, I'm not getting any younger. And if I'm going to take up a martial art, I love fighting, so I'm very happy to talk about fighting for a long time, Joe. I fancied the idea that I'd be... Because if I stayed with karate, I realised I would not be on the mat at 84. So, and back then, there was no jiu-jitsu in London. There was judo. And they had what was called Nawaza, which is the ground game. And they're pretty tasty. We got some good judo players. So I went from karate to judo, but I was only interested in the ground game. And then Roger Gracie came to live in the UK about 20 years ago. And Roger Gracie went on to become the world champion 8 times. And I started taking lessons with him and his dad, Mauricio. Then I ended up in New York for... I lived in New York for a while with my ex-wife, and I went to Henzo's gym when it was above a methadone clinic. And I fell in love with Henzo, and I fell in love with jiu-jitsu in a sort of serious way. And I became obsessed with it for a number of years. Henzo gave me all my belts. I mean, I should have got black belt 10. Well, I should have got a black belt. I became lazy to a degree, so I got a black belt when I should have got a black belt. And as you and I know, there's some tasty blue belts out there can have a lot of fun with me. But I sort of drifted a bit. I came in and out, sustained a few injuries. But if I was training hard, I think you train hard, you get black belt in 5 years, can't you?
You got to be obsessed.
Yeah, but
5 years.
There are kids that are. There are kids that are.
You can. I mean, I was a brown belt for 8 years, so you're talking to the wrong person.
No, I'm the same as you. I was brown belt for 8 years.
I think it's if you're a real fanatic, you could get it in 5 years, but it's super rare. Like BJ Penn got it in 3. That's almost unheard of. There's a few people that have done that.
Yeah, there's some guys in our gym in London, in Rogers Place, that they're there 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. They mean it, and within 6 months, they're a proper pain in the arse.
Yeah. Yeah, well, once you become obsessed with the movements and you start studying the various positions and the possibilities, it becomes a part of your life. It becomes a part of your, almost like your operating system. And as you see these guys reinforce that operating system, you see their game becoming more and more complex, and to be able to chain attack after attack and being able to anticipate the defenses of those attacks and plan 2 and 3 steps ahead, and you see all this play out. It's an amazing. I really, really enjoy watching someone go from being a beginning student to being a killer. It's a fascinating process because you're literally watching someone develop their comprehension of a language of fighting, and that language of fighting is analogous to life. It helps them in every single aspect of their life because it's one of the most difficult things that a person will do in their day. I mean, you walk into a jiu-jitsu school, you park your car. You live in this normal realm of normal people with normal problems and bills and stresses and issues. But once you go into that thing, you put on that gi or no gi or whatever you're doing, and you go into that class, once you engage in these sparring sessions with skilled practitioners, you're doing one of the most difficult things any person within a 100-mile radius of you that's not fighting for their life is doing. And by doing that on a regular basis and constantly reinforcing this language, it enhances all your possibilities and your potential possibilities as a person.
Very eloquent. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. One of the great things I found about jiu-jitsu is whenever I came to a city, we just tap into a computer where the next gym was, and we roll down there. I'm usually with 2 or 3 people. Ivan out there, he's also a black belt. I got a chap that I was with called Bobby the Tits, who was an Olympic judo player. Fucking, you should see the chest on this geezer. He is a beast.
That's why he's Bobby the Tits.
Bobby the Tits. So a cross between Ivan the Terrible and Bobby the Tits, we used to hit these gyms, and everyone, there's a complete substructure there. If you want to be looked after, they'll give you a gaff. Hello, mate. How's it going? And there's the brotherhood. I suppose it's probably the same for people who go to church. I don't know. But there is a brotherhood that I found amongst fighters where everyone's like game and friendly, come around at the barbecue, do what, and there's a whole substructure there that everyone will look after everyone else. And I've never, in the 20 years of fighting in different gyms, have I lost my temper, or I had a reason to lose my temper.
Right.
Has anyone ever been a bully? You've had people a bit clumsy, got a bit carried away, but there's such a system of accountancy,
right,
that you can't get away with being a bully because there's always a bigger bully, and you're going to get found out. And I like that aspect of it. Everyone gets found out.
Yeah, especially over time, right? I mean, if you're training consistently with really difficult training partners, your character is going to be tested. There's just no way around it.
There's no way around it. And sometimes I end up training quite a lot at home. Right, I've got 5, 6 mates to come around there. It's not the same as going to a new gym with new players.
Right.
And you've got to get out there. I know a few rich guys that have got trainers, and they're not bad players. The trainers are good, and the fighters are good, but because they don't get outside of their comfort zone and go to a feral gym, a gym on the street, it's very hard for them to really evolve.
Right.
You got to keep putting yourself in an uncomfortable spot in uncomfortable gyms.
And like as you said, when you do that though, you do see the same thing over and over again. The same type of human. You just see them in London, or you see them in New York or in Los Angeles. You see that same type of human.
It's the great thing about a sport in general, but let's be specific because it's something that you and I can relate to, is there are no barriers in jiu-jitsu. No one's looking at you if you're rich, you're poor, you're black, you're white. It's completely irrelevant. You come to the mat, And if you get on with the geezer you're fighting, you get on with the geezer that you're fighting.
Yeah.
And there's a complete clarity of vision when you're fighting someone. It's just you're fighting them, and then you rate them on their ability of how they fight.
Yeah, and you carry that social hierarchy, like what's important in that school is that it is like who is proficient, who's very good. That's the
currency.
Yeah, the ultimate currency.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I had a name when I used to train out here or in New York. That they used to call me Hollywood, because I was like the only celebrity kind of person that used to come in and say, "Oh, right, Hollywood, you fancy a little roll around, this, that, and the other." But that, and a couple of people initially went, "Oh, you're that geezer," and yeah, that lasted all of 30 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
And then everything gets wiped. You have no currency on the mat other than your currency on the mat.
Right.
And there's a wonderful clarity in that.
Yeah, for a guy like you or any big time celebrity, that's probably one of the only few places where you really truly experience that. Like, there's no bullshit in that role. Like, when someone's going after you and you're going after them, it's 100%. It is what it is. There's all the bullshit veil of society has been removed.
Yeah. I mean, I'll muddy the water a bit now. So harking back to what we were talking about previously, I'm aware that you become less adventurous as your ego grows in jiu-jitsu, right? Particularly if you're the guy that doesn't tap. If you're the guy that doesn't tap, you don't ever want to be the guy that doesn't tap, and you hunker up and you become a boring fighter. And it's an issue. You know those guys, and there's a couple of guys that I can think of one in particular, that if you get the better of him, and by and large he's a better fighter than me, but all of a sudden he realises he's in trouble. Just before I'm about to tap him, he goes, stop there, one sec, guy. If you just moved a little bit to the right.
He gives you instruction. Those guys are the worst.
That's their alibi to get out them losing face. Ooh. So what face is it they're losing? It's the crutch that they actually think that being a jiu-jitsu player has an identity in itself, and it doesn't. You cannot use it as a crutch. And it's the essence of all martial arts. Martial arts was about find yourself within that framework and be honest about it. And you meet the opponent. And as your man Connor will tell you, you're finding it's about you fighting you in the ring. What your other part of the mind, the other part of the mind that we were talking about, wants to say is about your reputation in the gym and what people think of you. So you're trying to find an identity from outside of yourself by not tapping. And you know that feeling. And by the way, I suffer it myself because I don't like to tap either. But it makes my game, it inhibits my game, and it stops me being creative.
Yeah, Marcelo Garcia has always been very adamant about that you have to open up your game in the gym, and it's the only way to really, truly progress. And don't worry about being tapped, and don't have that ego. And there's a great video of him and Damian Maia rolling, and they're rolling, they're putting almost no kinetic strength, no explosive energy, nothing athletic. They're just going through the movements and exchanging positions, and they're tapping each other left and right with no ego. It's really interesting to watch because you see Marcelo catch Damian, and they roll to a position, and Damian taps, and then they go through another position, and Marcelo does it, and it's really fascinating because what they're doing, they're truly flowing. There's no real, here we go right there, you can see them do it. But when these guys do it, as they're doing it, they're obviously using strength and they're countering with skill, but everything is very smooth and controlled. And you're looking at two of the very best black belts to ever do it. You're looking at Damian Maia, who right now is arguably the top contender in the UFC's welterweight division. He's going to be fighting Jorge Masvidal next weekend, actually, which is a really intense fight because Masvidal is a killer. And then Marcelo Garcia, who's probably one of the all-time great strangulation experts that's ever walked the face of the planet. I mean, he's really revolutionized a lot of aspects of the guillotine, the rear naked choke. And I was in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, in 2003 when he burst onto the scene, when he choked out Shaolin. And to see these two guys rolling together is really, really interesting because this is really kind of how you have to do it. You just do it. There's no one is saying I can't tap, I can't put myself in a bad position. They're exchanging positions like right there when Damian gets underhooks and he goes for the deep half. Marcelo's just rolling with it. They're just flowing. Yeah,
but you need two to tango, don't you? You can't have one with an ego and who's not going to play the game and bunkers down and screws himself down. It makes the whole thing very hard to do. You both got to be complicit.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very interesting watching two really, really high-level guys like this role. Or like, you know, Hadra Gracie and Braulio Estima or something like that. England's got a great scene.
Yeah, it does.
There's so much top-level jiu-jitsu over in England right now.
Yeah, it's got some good players, yeah.
It used to be a time just a couple of decades ago where if you wanted to train, it was very difficult to find really proficient instruction and great training partners.
20 years ago, it wasn't possible. I remember because I was first into it when we made Snatch, which is 18 years ago, and that's when Hodja first came to town, and before then it was just judo, just Nawaza.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can certainly get something out of that. But it seems like the level of attack. I mean, there's some people that have just a one rock solid attack, like Ronda Rousey had that rock solid attack with the armbar, and she comes from that judo background.
That's a naughty armbar.
Oh, it's nasty. Her armbar to this day, I believe, is one of the best armbars I've ever seen in MMA. Not just because she was successful with it, but when you watch her transitions, you watch how she's able to adjust and change things. Like the Kat Zingano fight is a perfect example of that. Kat Zingano just charges at her like a fucking bat out of hell, and they have this mad scramble, and Ronda realizes a position that she doesn't even utilize. But she understands arm bars so well. She knows, well, I could just throw my hip over this way and kick back here, and I'll catch that arm bar. This overall understanding of the position is so high level.
Yeah. When someone has a move like that, I used to fight a bit with Hickson. And Hickson used to do that thing where he ties his hands behind his back, and you've got to try and do something to him.
Right.
And you can't do anything to him. The level of sophistication when it's like that, he was so technical, Hickson, that it was, what I understand about jiu-jitsu is really rather primitive. But I'm aware I'm primitive. I'm aware that my understanding of jiu-jitsu is really quite primitive. And then when you see something like that armbar come sneaking out of nowhere, oh, it's a magnificent thing to behold, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, what you're saying is kind of interesting because someone listen to this and go, how is a black belt primitive? Like, you're not primitive, you're an expert. But I understand totally because I'm also primitive. I know what I know. Like, I understand, like, there's what Hickson's language is a series of words that you've never heard before, spoken perfectly in the right order with no pauses or ums or no filler, and the way he flows with it. It's just, he's got a level of proficiency that very few, other than Marcelo and Damian Maia, can really appreciate the true beauty of it all. Because they just don't, like, I won't see things coming. It would be, they're too complex.
It's completely different language.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know enough. I read a good line somewhere the other day that someone had enough brains to know that they didn't have any brains. So you know enough to know that you're in treacherous and deep waters here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your average geezer that starts rolling around with one of these good guys, say, oh, you know, he's all right. But, oh, there's Joe or Guy. They'll be the same. They've got the same colour belt on it. Let's have a go with that.
Yeah.